This is our lunch webinar series that's happening this growing season, all about risk management. So today we're going to talk about risk management for marketing. But I wanted to let you guys know this program is put on by Renewing the Countryside through the Go Farm Connect project. And what that is all about is farmers helping farmers engage with and navigate through those tough bureaucratic and government programs that can be really, really beneficial to your farm, but are often, have a lot of barriers that go along with it. So some of these lovely people here can help you navigate through some of that bureaucracy and some of those barriers. And we would love to get you information and knowledge and maybe even engage in some of these government programs that can be really, really helpful. If you want to learn more about the Go Farm Connect project, go ahead and scan that QR code there, or visit the website here at gofarmconnect.org. Um, Keep those phones out today too, because we've got a lot of QR codes for you folks to scan. So number of housekeeping things here. You're all muted, so sorry if you've been trying to talk to me. You're all muted for this, and we will be recording this. So if you are not able to join us today or need to revisit some of the content at a later time, go ahead and you will be sent out that link. You can go ahead and watch it at any time. Also, if you have a question that comes up during the webinar, please place it in the chat. My colleague Laura is watching the chat, and then at the end of our presentation, we will ask those questions out to the group and get those answers for you. So just a few housekeeping things there. And also, before we get started, I want to let you know this is our webinar series. So we have several of these webinars coming up once a month through the growing season. Our next one in July is going to be all about record keeping for your farm, what kind of records you should keep, how to keep them, some tips for the trade, and then just why they're important and what they can do for you. Our webinars are always followed by a field day, either the week after or whatnot. This one happens to be on July 1st. We're going to have our field day. And those are always on Tuesdays from 5:30 to 7:30. So a little more in the evening after a day of farming or a day of work. You can come out and see what this looks like in person. So do sign up for some of those. Here's the link for the next one coming up on record keeping. So if you want to sign up, go ahead and scan that QR code and register. All of these are free. So we have a nice grant from the USDA that is footing the bill for all of these. So do take advantage of this and help help integrate some of the stuff you learn into your farm. All right, and with that, let's go ahead and get started. Again, this is our lunch webinar series on marketing for risk management. So today we're going to be hearing from myself and Laura, and then we'll hear how this really looks. Well, we're going to give you some tools and some kind of nerdy math stuff to help you with your risk management and marketing. But then we'll hear from an actual farmer, Mumpah Lee, about how she does marketing in her risk management plan. And then we'll hear from Mallory Forseth from Minnesota Grown, which if you aren't a member of Minnesota Grown yet, maybe this will convince you that this is a really good idea. There's some wonderful tools and marketing tools and advertising promotional materials that you can get for being a Minnesota member that are really, really very much worth it. So we'll hear from them towards the end. So what we're going to do today is we're just going to cover marketing as a whole, just kind of give a refresher. You know, you probably last heard about marketing in one of your college business classes and you were probably hungover. So anyway, we'll just go through that again. And then we're going to teach you a couple of tools to measure your different markets and how they're performing. And then we'll hear about Mumpah's Garden and how she does her marketing. And by the way, folks, she is probably still in the air right now. She's flying to Arizona, and she's going to get off the plane and jump on this webinar because she is awesome. And she was very confident she'd be able to do it. So we're going to hear from her later. And then we'll hear about some of the tools that Minnesota Grown has for marketing and how that can help your farm. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. You probably are all wondering now, what the heck does marketing have to do with risk management? How are these two things related? And the reason we decided that this was probably important enough that we should talk about it on our webinar series is that each of your market channels, when you are a small, diversified vegetable or livestock grower, it has its own costs and benefits. And to really manage the risks that those costs and benefits pose to your farm, we need to be able to measure them. And so that's the tool that we're going to get into today in a little bit. Oftentimes, I see marketing is very overlooked by beginning farmers, emerging farmers. And I think this becomes because so much of us are so obsessed with growing the plants or raising the animals. We're really product people. We love to produce the product, and oftentimes we forget that selling the product is almost just as important as creating it. And so I really wanted to stress some of those important things that marketing can do for your business. And oftentimes, the successful farms out there are doing a really good job on their marketing side of their business. So this is an important thing to talk about, and oftentimes pretty overlooked by emerging farmers. And then marketing can also kind of be your crop insurance. If you have a bunch of different marketing channels out there, a bunch of different ways to move your products, the chances that, there's a catastrophic a failure of one of them really helps. So it's kind of like a crop insurance policy to be really aware of and knowledgeable about your different market streams. So that's why we decided to talk about marketing and risk management. Now, the definition of marketing is, according to American Marketing Association, is that marketing is the activity or set of institutions and processes for creating, communicating, delivering, and exchanging offerings that have value for customers, clients, partners, or society at large. And now, if you're like me, you probably fell asleep halfway through that definition. So really, what marketing is all about is just how you sell your stuff. Whether you're producing T-bones or carrots or yarn or milk, you all have to sell it somehow, even if it's wholesale and someone else is selling it for you, to get that product ready to that end buyer. That is marketing. So it has much more to do than just advertising and social media. It's that whole process of how you get your product to that end consumer, what kind of packaging you use, a lot of how you grow it and when you pick it and where you go to sell it. That all has to do with marketing. And like I said, a lot of times those things get lost with the other pieces of the business. Some of the rudimentary things you learn in marketing is that there's the 5 P's of marketing. So that's people, product, place, price, and promotion. So in a marketing plan, you need to touch on all these 5 aspects of marketing. Who are the people that you're selling to? What's the product you're selling them or the service? Where is that sale taking place? Even if it's online, how does that happen? What kind of price points are your customers willing to pay, or what can you fetch for your products? And then how do you promote that product to your consumer? Um, Out of these 5, people happens to be the most important. You need to know your demographic, your target market, and that's really where most of your effort should be spent on marketing. And so we're going to really dive into the people part, the demographic part, when we're talking about marketing today and trying to measure those different demographic or those different costs and benefits. So when we look at people, we're really looking at the demographic of who is buying the product you're creating, whether it's carrots or T-bones or milk or whatever, and really trying to figure out what are their values, what are their needs, what do they want, and then how can you deliver that product for them in a way that meets all those needs and is coherent with their values. Oftentimes, when thinking about people, it brings in all the other aspects of your business. What's the price? What's the quality? What kind of services or services provided when you're selling? Are you very informative and engaged with them at the farmer's market, or are you calling your wholesaler weekly with an update? All of that has to do with how you are engaging your people and your demographics. So largely For most of us, smaller direct selling farmers, we really have two general market channels. We're either selling directly to the consumer or we're selling to a wholesaler or another business that then sells direct to the consumer. And we can pretty much sum up all the different marketing channels that we engage in these two categories. There is maybe some spillover, with like food hubs, maybe that's a little bit of a bleed between direct and wholesale, or restaurant sales is sometimes a kind of a bleed between the two. But typically we're selling directly to the consumer, or we're selling to another business that then will move that product onto the consumer themselves. Both of those general categories have some considerations, some costs and some benefits that go along with them. And I think a lot of the reasons why we as small farmers, produce growers, direct marketing farmers engage in the direct market, that retail marketing, is that it's a very low cost to get into. You get yourself a tent and pay your stall fee at the farmer's market, and you're ready to sell, and you can get that top dollar for your product. Um, it's not a lot of risk. You don't have to sign a contract. You don't have to get fancy insurance or get certified for your product. So it has a lot less barriers for entry. So it's a great way for beginners to start off. And you see this, you see a lot of people start at the farmer's market and then, get a little larger, and then they do wholesale, or maybe they open their own brick and mortar store. That often is a real tangible way for businesses to get started and to scale up. Um, you can start small. You don't need all the equipment that maybe, a wholesaler a farm would need to have right away. And then, of course, the best part is you can capture the full dollar amount. So you can sell that retail price. You don't have to discount it any for a wholesale buyer. Um, and the other nice part too, especially when you're doing CSA, is that you can grow a lot of different things. And so it's kind of like your own crop insurance. You can grow a heck of a lot of different things, raise a heck of a lot of different animals. And when you're doing a CSA model, you can pick and choose kind of the successful ones. If one thing didn't turn out, it's going to be okay. You can still fill that box. Of course, there's a lot of costs to this as well. You can see in this picture, I've got a delivery van, I've got a staff, I've got a POS system, a cash box, bags, displays. There are some costs when you need to consider when you're doing direct marketing. You need to do basically all that work, all that marketing work of moving your product. You're not just dropping off something at the loading dock, you're actually hawking it. You got to spend the time to pick for the market. You have to spend the time selling at the market. And it's you who are coordinating all the sales, all the marketing, all of those logistics, all the customer service. If you have a complaint or something, that's on you. You've got to figure all of those things out. All the planning is on you when you're doing direct marketing. So you might need to learn new software programs. You might need to learn customer service, all these things that may take you off the farm or take you in other directions than what you were anticipating. Um, Oftentimes, you might need to hire some labor or get some volunteers to help you with the marketing of it. Either staffing a farm stand or being a vendor at a farmer's market. But the nice part is you can often have a whole bunch of different crops. So you can really experiment. That's a good thing, and sometimes a bad thing too. So if you're just getting into it and all you have is hamburger, then oftentimes at a farmer's market, they're expecting to see a more diverse amount of product. Um, and then the thing I like best about selling retail is that I can move both first and seconds of that product. So I can kind of some of the poor quality stuff, when I'm there talking it up, I can move it where a wholesaler would just reject it entirely. Um, Wholesale marketing considerations. So this is great for folks who want to spend less time doing the marketing because you don't have to do as much. You're selling to someone else who's going to take that responsibility on themselves. So less time in sales, marketing, logistics, and customer service. Oftentimes it's less labor too. When I'm selling, a 5 pound or a 10 pound bag of lettuce to a restaurant, all I have to do is dump it in a big 10 pound box and I'm done. I don't have to bag it into little half-pound bags and then go to the market and sit there and sell it and talk it up and give samples and any of that. Um, Oftentimes, though, these bigger buyers want consistency. So they don't really want 100 different kinds of lettuce. They want one, and they want a lot of that one. Um, so it's a great way to move a lot more volume, move more goods. And with that, you get that economy of scale. You don't have to spend as much time or investment on that one particular thing because you have those economies of scale working for you. But it's also a business to business transaction. So that means that those very things that if you're doing your own retail, those concerns and responsibilities you have, that's going to be on that business. So they want consistency, reliability, and safety. Those are the biggest things because they have to do all of that work of selling the product. Um, and so they're going to require things like licensing and inspections and insurance and consistent boxes, consistent vegetable size, or consistent carcass grading. Um, but regardless of whether you're doing wholesale marketing or retail marketing, it's all about the trust that you have with the buyer. Whether that's a wholesale customer or a retail customer, you got to have that trust and you got to have that relationship building, and that takes time. It just takes a lot of time to build those relationships. So let's talk about some of those very tangible costs that we can measure. They're very different. There's some overlap, but most of the stuff is different, whether you're directly marketing or retail marketing your goods or wholesale marketing your goods. Um, when you sell retail, uh, oftentimes you have costs that you kind of don't really think about, maybe, or maybe that's just me, but these costs often get roped into like growing supplies. But I would encourage folks to keep them uh, in in their own marketing category. So this is things like your packaging, your bags, any sort of posts you're doing on social media or any paid media ads, um, any member fees or dues that you need to pay for your market. You've got the tents, the tables, the tablecloths, the baskets, all those things at the farmers market, as well as maybe some software needs. Like if you're doing a CSA, maybe you're purchasing Harvey or something like that to help sell your goods. Not to mention all of the travel time and mileage and gas to get your things to different folks. Um, my colleague Ryan Pesh says if you are a retail produce farmer, you are also a small delivery driver. Um, so, when you're selling wholesale, there's some similarities there. You've got packaging, and that might be a bigger expense because you have more of it. You still probably are going to have some delivery, but maybe it's not as much as selling retail. Maybe you only have to drop off something once a week or once a month. But there's the costs of time in getting those things to the distributor, as well as the licensing, insurance, and certifications that sometimes those wholesale buyers require. So how can you measure what your return on your investment is with whether you're doing this crazy different thing of retail marketing or wholesale marketing? Well, that's the tool we want to present to you today, and it's called a market channel analysis or a market channel projection if you are looking into the future. And basically, this tool is to measure your market's return on investment because honestly, not all markets are created equal. Even if they're both farmers markets, some farmers markets perform better than others. Some farmers markets are more expensive to engage in than others. So there's all these considerations you need to balance. And so this will hopefully help you with your risk management when it comes to marketing. So this tool, I want to give a shout out to Ryan Pesh, who I alluded to earlier. He is the inventor of this tool. It's a simple spreadsheet, and we will link it out in an email sent to all of you so you have it at your disposal. But basically, he made it so that you could put in your gross sales on all your different market channels. Now, this does require a bit of record keeping, so stay tuned to next month. If you are a little curious on how to get these numbers, we'll talk a little bit about that on next month's webinar. But assuming you have some details that you've captured in your records this year and you know your gross sales for that market channel, you pop it in here. And then you kind of dig through all of those expenses that you had for going to those markets. What fees did you have to pay each time, or what kind of insurance did you need? What kind of licenses did you need? How many miles did you put on going to that one market versus another? And then he has a nice little a calculation for your own labor. So you put in how much time you've invested into each market channel, and then you can put in a dollar rate for yourself, or if you have like paid staff or something, you could just use those rates. What's nice is that, like for me, I don't pay myself yet to work on my own farm. So I just put in like a simple $10 an hour just to kind of see what my cost was. I know I wasn't paying myself, but if I wanted to kind of figure out what was my return on my time, I could do that. You can also just put zero here too, and then get some of those cold hard numbers. So this is what it looks like on my farm. This is, I think, from 2023 or 22. But I went in and I did Ryan's calculator here. So I put in my different market channels. I have a farm stand right here at the farm. I've got 3 different markets I go to, which were these. And then I participate in a couple of food hubs, as well as just sell a little bit wholesale to restaurants. And you can see each one had its own unique cost involved with it. And then I had some varying travel times and working times on these different market channels. And then it spit out my net revenue from each of these market channels. And then it goes one step further and it takes your margin. So the nice part about Ryan's calculator is it can calculate just how much of the dollar you're able to keep at each one of these market channels. So it gives it a very apples to apples, black and white comparison. So you can see, the farm stand, I'm able to keep, 87% of the dollar, 87 cents on the dollar that I'm making there, where, the Aiken Farmers Market, I'm only keeping about 49 cents on the dollar just because of the costs involved there. And I can objectively measure that, look, these food hubs are very profitable when it comes to marketing. They're not costing me a lot to move my goods. But again, you have to look at the full picture and see that I'm not making all that much money there, but I am claiming almost all of it. So, when you really look at it, the biggest sales I have, I think, is the farm stand and the Grand Rapids Farmers Market this year. So that's the most money, but not as great of a margin as the food hubs. So if you are a little bit hesitant and or maybe a little bit scared of spreadsheets or find them just ungodly boring and that is not your take, there's another tool that you can use as well called My Market Profit. And it works very much like a TurboTax or a Google Forms. And it just asks you a series of questions and it'll spit out a report like this, no spreadsheet required. This is put on by Center for Farm Financial Management at the University of Minnesota, and it's a free resource for you. And if you want, you can scan this QR code and follow along and register yourself right along while I'm explaining how to go. So when you sign in to your My Market Channel account, you have to create an account, so your email and password. And then you're going to choose whether you want to do an analysis on last year's markets, or let's say you've got a choice of what market you want to do this year, and you want to kind of project how things are going to go this next year. So you either choose an analysis or a projection. And if you're new to this, I would probably say just go with the projection side. If you have been doing this a couple years and you've got some good records, you'd probably be able to do an analysis pretty well. And this software makes it really easy to do so. Next, you're going to put in your revenue for each market. So line up your different farmers markets or your wholesale and retail markets that you want to compare. And then you can either put in your total sales on those markets, kind of like Ryan's spreadsheet did, or you can go by product if you have that kind of detail. So if you want to know, where do your carrots sell best at, this software can do it if you have that kind of records. So you'll throw in all your income for those different market channels you have, and then it'll add labor. And I encourage you guys to do this even if you're not paying yourself, just put in the hours. So at least you can say, all right, this is using this much of my time, and I could use that time for other things, or I like using my time for this activity, but at least you know what kind of time you're getting involved. And you can do this with several different employees or staff, and there's different pay rates. If you're doing commission-based or hourly or whatnot, there's a whole list you can choose from. It's very customizable. After throwing in your labor, then you add your expenses, and it breaks it down into marketing expenses, production expenses, and overhead expenses. And if you're really just trying to compare your different market channels on how well they do, I would encourage you to just skip the production costs entirely. If you're a vegetable farmer, this is usually a sticky, hard one to figure out. So just figure out your costs to go to each market, ignore your production costs, throw in your overhead, and then you'll get a good, accurate reading of what those markets are doing for you, whether it's wholesale, retail, or what have you. And then it'll spit out a nice comparison of how those different channels are performing for you. So it'll give you a summary of all of them. And then probably the most useful page I find is this comparison. So I threw in an example here when creating this. I have the opportunity to go to a Thursday market this year, and there's one in Deerwood and there's one in Aiken. So I thought, well, maybe I'll compare them using this tool and see what happens. So this was a projection. So of course, I'm kind of taking these numbers out of thin air just based on, past sales in these different places. So I assumed that if I went to the Deerwood Farmers Market, I would get probably about 7,000 over the course of 2 months. Where if I went to the Terrace Market, it'd be about 3. And then I added up all the mileage of going there with that standard mileage rate, as well as the time it would take for me to go that way if I paid myself just $10 an hour. And then I put in all of my overhead, so my real insurance dollars that I'm spending this year, all of the taxes, property taxes, all those kind of overhead expenses, and it shot out my net return. So, of the $7,000 in revenue at Deerwood, I'd be able to keep about 2,300, 400. At the Terrace, out of 3,000, I'd be able to keep 7,800. Now, what this tool does not do is it will not give you your profit margin or your net rate of return. So I'm going to teach you that calculation. It's not very hard. Basically, what you'd need to do is you need to take your net revenue. So that's after all those marketing expenses and overhead expenses. What are you actually going to take home? And you're going to divide that by your total sales or your total revenue. So in this case, it'd be that on Deerwood's market, it'd be 2,400 divided by 7,000. On the Terrace, it'd be that 800 divided by 3,000. And that will give me my apples to apples comparison of net profit margin. So when I do that, I can get a fairly good reading that, hey, when I go to Deerwood, out of every dollar that I spend to go there, I'm going to keep, or every dollar that I earn there, I'm going to be able to keep 34 cents, where I'm only going to be able to keep 26 cents at the Terrace Market. So when you do an apples to apples comparison like that, you can really dig into those numbers and really figure out what is going to bring you the most money. But with that said, cost is only one decision factor. So we can dial it in with this tool. We can say dollars and cents wise, it makes sense to go to this market versus that. But that is not the only reason to go to one market. And I want to be clear on that. It's not just about money. There's other things going on that you need to consider. It's what you do well. If you are really good at the wholesale, you don't like doing retail, it doesn't make sense for you to do that. Even if you are making a better net rate of return on that retail market. Same with if you have maybe you don't have a wholesale market available, or maybe you don't have retail markets available. You got to do what you can do, regardless of what the numbers are saying. And oftentimes folks want to develop a market. So they want to, maybe it's a little closer to home than what you're going to. And so you're going to try to stick it out here, kind of ramp it up, and hopefully that market will become big enough for you. Or maybe one of the markets maybe has a lower rate of return, profitability, but maybe it's more culturally relevant to you in your community. And that might be a very important reason to decide that market versus another. Same with if it's aligns with your values. And also with how much money it makes, like as you saw in mine during the 2003 23 analysis, my margin is very, very good on those food hubs, but I'm actually making most of my money at the Grand Rapids Farmers Market and the farm stand. So I'm going to continue to do those because that's what's paying the bills. So there's very good reasons to do a market other than cost, but here you have a tool that can weigh them out, apples to apples, and hopefully you find that helpful. So that concludes my section here. I'm wondering if we have Mumpah on here, or maybe she's still waiting for her flight to land. So maybe what we'll do is we'll go ahead and have Mallory Forseth talk a little bit about um, Minnesota Grown. So again, we've talked a lot about the cost of markets, and this is a great tool to help you with some of those costs. And I guess I'll turn the floor over to you, Mallory. She is the program lead of Minnesota Grown. If you want to find their website, go ahead and scan that code and take it away, Mallory.
Awesome. Thanks, Eric. Is it possible for me to share screen?
Sure.
Oh, I
Let's
think I
see.
just got permission, maybe.
I need to
Hmm.
stop, so I'm going to stop sharing, and then you are
Okay,
okay to go.
excellent. All right, good afternoon, everybody, and thanks so much, Eric and Renewing the Countryside, for hosting this event and having me. My name is Mallory Forseth. I'm the Minnesota Grown Program Manager at the Minnesota Department of Agriculture, and I'm just going to share briefly marketing resources that are available through Minnesota Grown. So hopefully it'll be a useful primer for those of you who maybe aren't familiar with the resources that we offer. And if you are members, hopefully a refresher to make sure that you are maximizing your membership benefits. So Minnesota Grown is the Department of Agriculture's buy local marketing program and the statewide brand for local food and farm products. And our mission is to promote quality Minnesota grown products essentially for everyone's benefit. And we do that through a suite of services. We are a membership program, so you have to join and pay an annual membership fee. And then we provide a suite of services, all of which are designed to drive customers to you. So I'll talk briefly through each one of those. So first, this is one of the first things that was established. The program has been around for as long as I have been on this earth, over 40 years. And one of the first things that was created in the program is the logo, a statewide brand for local food and farm products. And so that's useful because it gives consumers a consistent and easy way to identify local products on the marketplace. If they're out shopping and they want to know what's local in a grocery store, for example, they can spot it really easily if you're using the statewide brand. So it can be used to promote products that are at least 80% grown or raised in Minnesota, as well as farmers markets selling those products. It requires a license from MDA. And so when you become a member, you get that license. We have over 1,300 license holders around the state, a very wide variety of producers. So everything from apples to yak fiber and lots of stuff in between. Just some consumer insights around reasons to use the Minnesota Grown label. So we did some research a couple of years with some researchers at the University of Minnesota to do a survey of a representative sample of Minnesotans across the state, and found that 80% are familiar with the Minnesota Grown logo. So it has a very high brand recognition, and they associate it with positive things. So they see it and they think high quality, fresh, healthy, positive community impact. I think a lot of us are maybe hesitant to admit how much branding influences us because it's something that sort of happens in a subconscious level in the background, but it really does. Folks see that logo and immediately they're thinking about homegrown and fresh and high quality products. They also say that they're more likely to buy a product if it has the logo, and that they're willing to pay a premium for Minnesota grown products. So just awesome reasons to use it on your products. I'm not going to talk too much about the directory. I would encourage folks, if you're not familiar, oh, the video is playing, so I guess you'll see how it works. But if you're not familiar, I would encourage you to go poke around on it at minnesotagrown.com. You can search in many, many ways, but this is showing all producers around the state. It's a map-based directory. It's dynamic. You can search by location. You can even search along a route if you're traveling somewhere and want to find a strawberry farm along the way to go pick some berries. And so folks can find, our ultimate goal is to drive folks to you. And so farms have listings, which you see one here. Our goal is to get people to click those blue buttons, to call you, to email you, to visit the website, or to get directions to your farm. And so that's actually how we measure conversions on the website, is how many people are clicking to contact a farm. The directory is searched by over 350,000 unique users each year, and gets over 1 million page views. And I don't actually have the conversion rate handy, but I can tell you that it has been growing pretty significantly in recent years. We also have a wholesale directory, and so it works in a very similar way, but it's geared towards wholesale producers or wholesale buyers, mostly being used by schools at this point, who are sourcing local for farm to school programs, but we're also promoting it to grocers and other wholesale buyers. So you can be listed there as well. I know one of Eric's favorite benefits of Minnesota Grown is our free marketing materials. And so we have a whole suite. We have over 50 different items that have the Minnesota Grown logo on them that you can get for free from us as a member. So there's some photos of them, of some of them here, but there are things like rubber bands, which I've seen a lot lately on asparagus, twist ties, plant stakes, the logo cards, a variety of stickers, price cards for farmers markets. There's a whole suite of things. So go to our website and check it out if you're interested in that. We hear from people that not only is it just handy to be able to get those things, to get that Minnesota Grown logo on stuff, but saves them the time of like having to research and like interface with a vendor and all of that to try to source their own rubber bands or whatever. We also have a cost share for labeling and signage. And so this reimburses 50% of the costs of the design and printing of product labels, product packaging, or signage, up to $300 a year if you include the Minnesota Grown logo in the design. So there are some fun examples here from just the last year, actually, of, a pork farm that put Minnesota Grown on their labels, Redhead Creamery's Little Lucy, Brie Hearts. The Crafted Orchard got a flag sign if you need a banner for a farmer's market, or a decal wrap for a delivery truck. All of those things would be eligible for the cost share. We also do statewide advertising for local products. About half of our budget actually goes to statewide advertising, reminding consumers it's strawberry season now. You should go find the strawberry farm in the Minnesota Grown directory and stock up for the year, right? And so a lot of it is about awareness of seasonality, what's in season now, and again, getting folks to that directory and to you. I'm not going to go into many of the details of the advertising, but we do it on a wide variety of platforms and a variety of tactics. Oh, we'll skip over that the ad. So if you're not a member, we would love to have you join. It's $25 a year. We have two different levels. So the first is $25 a year. It's perfect for you if you're a market vendor that only sells at farmers markets because it does not include a directory listing. So if you're only selling at a farmers market and you don't want people rolling up to your farm, just get the $25 a year level and you'll get the license to use the logo, access to those free marketing materials, cost share eligibility, and you could have a wholesale directory listing if you want it. If you want to be listed in the consumer directory, it's $65 a year and also comes with all of the benefits of the $25 a year level. So if you're interested in learning more, go to minnesotagrown.com/join and you can find a breakdown of the membership benefits. You can browse the marketing materials and things like that, and then find the link to apply. I'll also drop my contact info in the chat if anybody has questions or wants help with the application. I'm always happy to chat and meet with you. Anybody have any questions for me?
I have a quick question, and maybe I missed this, but does Minnesota Grown still do their CSA directory?
Yes, so that's one part of the online directory. So the way that I showed you was searching by all members, but you can also search by product. And so one of those is CSA. And so we have a directory that is of CSA listings, and then every farm can also list all of their drop sites. So it's very convenient for consumers because they can say, oh, I want to search for a farm that has a drop site like close to my home, and then they can find the farm that does that. So that's actually one of our most visited pages of the directory. Mm-hmm.
That's great. I was going to say, just as a former CSA farmer, that kind of evolved into the place I felt like where customers were searching for it, and it was so dependent on drop sites. So just as a plug, it's a really helpful, if you are doing any CSA farming, it's a really helpful marketing tool.
Yeah, thanks for that. It's always great to hear that positive impact. All right, well, I will stop sharing screen. I'll get my contact info in the chat. Feel free to reach out, everybody, if you want to chat about something or have questions. But thanks again, Eric, for having me.
Well, thank you so much, Mallory, and do check out Minnesota Grown if you haven't already. I think I've saved hundreds of dollars on rubber bands and twisty ties and little, marketing signs just for writing your price and stuff. So it's a really good investment of your time, and it's what, 25, 65 bucks, and you're going to get probably $300 worth of marketing material. So it's a very, very easy return on investment. So I think our other speaker is still in the air. Mumpa is probably not quite landed yet. Oops, I don't see my screen anymore, so I don't know if you guys do either. Let me try this again. All right, are you guys seeing the slideshow here?
Not yet, Eric.
Okay. So what we're going to do is just have Laura talk about Mumpa's place and her farm, and that is where our field day will be next week. So if you want to uh, see how this is done on a real farm next, 2 weeks from today, we will have that. And I don't know where my slides are. Let me see.
Yeah, I just messaged with Mompa. It sounds like she just got off the plane. So if she joins us, that's great. Otherwise, I'm happy to talk about her farm a little bit. We sold together at the Mill City Farmers Market for, gosh, probably over a decade together. So I can give you an overview, kind of a teaser about her farm, talk about how great it is, and then hopefully you all can join us at her actual farm and hear more from Mompa on Tuesday, July 1st. And I believe that's around 5:30 p.m. So when you get information about, as a follow-up to this webinar, we'll also include information about the field day if you can join us. And then Mompa can talk a little bit more about marketing and how they've thought about it over the lifetime of their farm. You know what? I think she just
There
is
she
able to
is.
hop on. Great timing. Yeah.
Welcome, Pa. Great timing. We are just
We
ready
have
for you.
our conference
So,
call. Hi,
um,
guys.
I hope you can grab a quick breath and
Yes.
roll right ahead.
Okay.
How's the weather
Okay.
there?
It's really hot and humid, and we definitely didn't come prepared because we were in sweaters and long pants, long sleeves. So, but yes, thank you guys so much for hopping on the webinar with me. I'm Humpa Lee with Humpa's Garden. Will you be clicking the slides for me, Eric? Or
Yeah, just let me know when you want to go to the next one.
Okay, great. So we run a organic farm, and I'm also a realtor by trade. Inspired Access Realty, a broker realtor, and then we run a 5-acre farm, organic farming, and we're cultivating hung herbs. We sell to the hospitals. So our mission is to, get our word out about these hung herbs and going into dabbling in agritourism this year. So next slide. I'm just going to talk, and then I guess Q&A could come after or something, right? Eric?
Yep.
Yep. So I founded Humpa Lee, the first certified organic farm in Minnesota. We bought 20 acres like 5 years ago, and we were able to transition it quickly into organic farming. And so my grandma had passed away with cancer, and so when I was younger, at age 14, we were Big River Farms participants and graduated from there. And then I found land and transitioned about 5-6 years ago. Next slide. So our mission is to pass down the generations of healthy eating through the generations. Some of the herbs that my mom and my sister is researching with the University of Minnesota to see where our traditional monk herbs, after a woman goes into postpartum diet, they would basically go through a monk herb diet. And I wrote a grant for NCRCR about 10 years ago. And the greenhouse that's still standing at my farm was a part of that project. And my mom was able to preserve her herbs over this past 10 years and certify organic. The uses are for postpartum care, digestive support, and wellness. And so that's one of our niche markets that we focus on, is integrating that into hospitals and systems and lifestyles. Next slide. So I've been around for 15 years, but we rented land primarily at Big River Farms. Finally, we're transitioning to our own farm. In order to mitigate risk, we have a niche market in hung herbs. We ran a 150 member CSA 2 to 3 years ago. And it was a, pick your own, kind of like you could pick your own selections. And we did deliveries and farmers market. We focused on 3 farmers market, 1 in White Bear Lake, Mill City Farmers Market, and the downtown St. Paul Farmers Market, but now we're down to 2. So this year we're dabbling in a little bit of agritourism to allow schools to come and tour our farms, and as a way of like educating them about Hmong herbs and Hmong authentic growing. And then we also do tours and events. We're dabbling in that, finding out that we're really close to the city. We're only 15 minutes from the Twin Cities, so it's kind of convenient. So next slide. And so a CSA, we really like the concept of a CSA because we like that they would pre-buy from us, so we knew exactly how much we had to grow of something. But the disadvantages of a CSA for us was that it was really hard to maintain. The variety, because after my dad passed away, we lost capacity. I want to say we were like down by 50,000 pounds of food by losing 1 labor on the farm. So we wanted our CSA to involve our authentic herbs and some of our Hmong vegetables or Hmong greens. And so we basically had about, members would sign up for a share, and then they would prepay for half of it. And then at the end of the year, they would pay for the half. So it helped us to also mitigate risk, knowing that like we knew, and our CSA members were more humble and willing and understanding that organic farming, we don't spray or anything. So some of our lettuce may have maybe more insect bites or not as big, you know, but yet it's still like the quality. So that was one of the advantages of a CSA. Because of capacity, we're hoping to bring it back eventually, but if we have more capacity, we'll bring that. So next slide. By diversifying, so I think to mitigate risk as we grow, we also had pickup sites at the farmers market site, and I think our best year we were able to average about 90,000 in sales, which was really good. We had like, so we had drop sites at all of our farmers market, plus we did deliveries. We went all out, but of course that year it was very exhausting and burnt out. So then we scaled back, and now we're focusing on wholesales and farmers market just because of capacity. But ideally, to have CSA drop sites at the farmers market, we got double sales. So we also had people coming in, and then we had the guaranteed sales from that. So that was a great way to mitigate risk for us. Next slide. So this year I do a lot of cultural cooking classes to get people educated about our Hmong herb workshops, and then we do a lot of farm tours. We are also, we worked with the Minnesota Arboretum last year to kind of talk to them about Hmong herbs too. So next slide. And then I feel like a lot of the impact and community building that we do is by expanding in these spaces. Ideally, we don't have the capacity to build out a full, like, we would love an arboretum and a conservatory to preserve our Hmong herbs. But that's our ultimate goal. But for now, it's just really education and preservation and just family run. So really no capacity or fundraising. And then whatever we're able to share with the community. So next slide. So you can get involved with us by coming to our risk management field day on July 1st. If you want to learn more about what we do, I will have the secrets of not get rich quick, but get rich slow and hard work, and maybe not find out that you're working way harder for your money, but we will like tell you all the secrets. So you have to come to our workshop on the 1st and meet us. We have, this year we're dabbling in like flower fields, and my dad had passed away, so he loved flowers. So we're kind of doing a memorial, and then bringing on my mom's story of how she brought her herbs here to the United States. So we'll be highlighting some of that. So come and visit us. And I'm standing in the parking lot. I hope my audio is good and you guys can hear me. But I think that's good, right, Eric? Do you need anything else from me?
Sounds great. And thank you so much for making the time, even on your travels, to come in and talk to us about your farm. And we look forward to seeing you in a couple weeks at your place.
Okay.
Awesome, great. And so no Q&A or anything, right? Just next presenter then.
Yeah, so we can go right to Q&A right now if you'd like. And so if you folks have any questions for Mom Pa, let's start with that, and then we'll go into questions on the webinar itself. So, and Mom Pa, if you got to go somewhere, don't worry. We'll try to answer the best we can. But
Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions for me or anything I could answer, or are we good? Or this is questions for you guys, right? Eric, right?
Well, let's start with questions for you. If you have, maybe we can keep for another couple minutes.
Yeah, sure, that'd be great.
Okay. Yeah, and is there any questions out there from Mom Pa about how she grows, how she mitigates risk through their different market channels, or even just general questions about what she's growing and that stuff?
I don't have any questions in the chat, so people can unmute. Otherwise, I think you gave us a really great teaser, Mom, for the event on July 1st.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you. If there's no questions, then I will check out. So hope everybody comes out.
You bet. Thanks again, Mom Pa.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mom Pa.
All right, bye-bye.
All right. Well, Laura, is there any questions that came up in the chat that we can answer at this time? Or if you can all unmute now and just ask your questions directly if you have any.
Yeah, there were no questions that came up while you were presenting, Eric. I did let everybody know that you would share links to the market channel analysis, the spreadsheet from Ryan, and some of the other links in an email. But yeah, I would say since we're a small group, if people want to just unmute if they have any questions, there's no dumb questions. Anything at all. We went through material pretty fast. So I think if anybody has any questions about, how do you even get started on this? Please feel free to ask, big or small.
This is Becky, and I'm wondering if you could remind me
Oh, looks like you muted.
if you could remind me how to access Ryan Pesch's his spreadsheet, his form for
You know what?
expenses.
Let's drop that link in the chat. Whoever has that, I might be able to
I
grab
can
that.
grab that, Eric. I can
Okay,
drop it.
Dave. There's also a worksheet. There's his spreadsheet that gets you that cost, but then he has a nice little table on a Word doc where you can kind of measure out, what do you like about this market versus this market, and get some of those, value-based decision makers as well, and kind of weigh them out. So I'd encourage you to look at both of those things. I tend to always want to make decisions by the numbers, but that's not the whole story in business ever. So there's always other factors. So who likes farmers markets and who can't stand working with the public? Huh?
Hi, this is Mary. I did have a question regarding Minnesota Grown. Is there certain things that qualify you to be part of that program as far as like amount you're selling or producing, or any kind of certification besides becoming a member and paying the fee?
I don't think there is. Great question. I mean, it's kind of like an application like you do for like a grant or something on the MDA website. I think you do
Okay.
have to be in Minnesota, which you are. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's it. I think it's just you select the membership level you want, and you get your license.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, it's super low barrier to entry. Well, with that, I just want to remind you about next month's webinar series over lunch. We're going to be talking about record keeping. So if you were curious on how folks are able to build those market channel analyses or projections, maybe this will help you get going on that. We'll have some different software programs highlighted that maybe or may not be helpful, as well as just some simple spreadsheet tools to use to help you keep track of all those farm records. So please sign up for that if you're interested. Again, if you just want some help from another farmer, scan this QR code or go to the website and check out some of these connectors. If you want to get a high tunnel for your farm, or you are wanting to graze out some of your ground and you want some pasture fencing or water lines, go to the Go Farm Connect website and see if you can connect with someone on there that can help you do those things. So the government has wonderful programs. The USDA has wonderful programs for farmers, but there are oftentimes a lot of barriers to entry. So we want to help you get through that, navigate that, and that's what our connectors are all about. So with that, thanks for joining me over your webinar here. Good luck with the growing season out there. Take care of yourselves, and we hope to see you in the next month.